When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Comedy YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about how could Renly have won the War of the Five Kings. Now, we've been doing an ongoing series, so if you guys want to check out the other two videos, those are going to be on Robb and Balon and how they could have won the War of the Five Kings. But this one's going to be on Renly. So this one might be a little bit more boring than the other two, but we're going to switch it a little. We're going to switch it. So you guys might be thinking, well, how would he win the War of the Five Kings? Don't get killed by Stannis, or Stannis' magic doesn't work. We're going to switch it up. So I want to get into that when we start the video, but before we do, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment, please do it up channel grow people that might like this content as well. Also, if you guys wanted to become a member of the channel, there's some emojis and you'll get a badges and stuff if you guys wanted to do that. Also, you'll get videos early and probably an extra video per week. So if you guys wanted that, it'll be, you know, there'll be a little join button. But yeah. Now, getting into the video, what I was talking about before. So there is this decision with Renly's camp, and he kind of is taking advice, right? We're having this war council. And Renly is trying to figure out, should we go to Stannis? Should we wipe him out? Or should we kind of just go around Stannis, don't worry about Stannis, take King's Landing, and then worry about Stannis? So in this scenario, we're going to go with the other option, which is going around Stannis and just taking King's Landing. Because we're not really made sure how close, like, does Mel's magic work? How far will these shadow babies kind of travel? It's kind of made a little ambiguous and a little unclear. So I'm going to assume that if Renly's far away from Stannis, it's not going to work, I guess. That's how I'm going to use that. Now, let's say even in this scenario that Stannis still takes Storm's End based off the, magic that Mel uses. Let's say that still happens, maybe. I'm not sure if it would, just based upon, even with that being said, Renly is still very powerful. I think they really could just withstand the siege. So I don't think Stannis would get Storm's End in this situation. I think he'd just be having to, siege it. So Renly moves on to King's Landing. Now, something we have to change for Renly to win this war. Now, Renly has the most amount of forces. He has the most power right now, but he very much is not taking this seriously. He's kind of just very slowly advancing, kind of doing tournaments. In this scenario, for Renly to come out on top, he needs to actually take this seriously. He needs to actually, get going, take King's Landing, and not letting Tywin and the Lannisters kind of plot. Now, regardless, if Renly is alive, the Lannisters are screwed. Because Robb's power at this point was maybe a little less than Tywin's at this point, but Robb was beating him at every single turn. And if Renly, lives, right, we have this idea that Renly and Robb are going to ally. So what ends up happening differently if Renly decides, hey, let's go to King's Landing, let's get the Iron Throne, and kind of help legitimize my throne, or my crown of me calling myself king, because I take it by conquest. We've seen that done before. Because the problem with Renly is, out of all of the five kings, right, he is the one with kind of really no claim. Because here's the thing, Balon doesn't want to be king of Westeros. He wants to be king of the Iron Islands and kind of part of the North, I guess. And then also, Joffrey is the king, but he has it through Robert's line. So depending on who you believe, if he's a bastard or not, he has legitimacy. Stannis is the younger brother, or the oldest brother right now of the Baratheons, but the youngest brother of Robert. So Renly is kind of sitting here, and he's pretty much, not really legitimate when it comes to how normally the throne would pass. Taking the throne would do a huge thing for his image. He would wipe out Joffrey. He could wipe out Tommen. All of the children, and also taking out Cersei, Tyrion. It just makes a lot more sense to do that. And also, the thing with Stannis is Stannis can't really do much to Renly in this situation, because Stannis has such a small force. I also like the idea that Renly doesn't need to be a kinslayer at this point. He can send the Tyrells once they take King's Landing, or specifically, I would send Randyll Tarly and lead a force to either A, negotiate with Stannis if he won't cooperate like he does in the normal story, then you wipe him out, right? I don't know how Stannis would be able to get out of this situation, because even if he uses a Shadow Baby on Randall Tarley, they're still heavily outnumbered, right? And Stannis is a great military commander. He's my favorite character, but in this scenario, I don't see a lot of ways he can win, because the whole key to how Stannis gains any power is Renly's death. And if Renly is never really anywhere near Stannis, I don't know if those Shadow Babies or whatever could have been able to kill Renly. I'm just not sure on their power and capabilities. So with all that being said, you also still have Robb, who is kind of keeping Tywin locked up in the Westerlands and the Riverlands. So now with Renly being able to help, that alliance would probably be formed. Robb would probably end up having to bend the knee. That's just kind of how that alliance was going to end up going in the end. And I think Robb would have been okay with it. And I think the North, they probably would not have liked it, but I think they would have seen how beneficial it was to them. And, you know, they can't really fight Renly and the Tyrells. So that is kind of how Renly wins the War of the Five Kings. I think he already was set up to win it. He was the most overpowered going into the War of the Five Kings. But the problem is, there's a couple problems. One, he really didn't need to take on Stannis. He didn't need to. And I think it hurt his public image if it came to being a kinslayer. We see how damaging that is to Jaime, Tyrion, all that stuff. Not really Jaime, he's a kingslayer, but I mean, kind of the same type of deal. And again, Renly just didn't need to be here, right? This was Stannis kind of making Renly do what he wanted, and Renly just did not need to be here. I get it, you know, you don't want to look like you've run away from the fight, but he didn't need to be there. He could have easily sent a force after taking King's Landing, which was very vulnerable at this time. So that was definitely a big blunder there, even though I see why Renly does it. Another thing, Renly, he just needed to be more like Robb, where he took the war seriously. Like, Renly had all of the political things he needed to do to be a good king, but he was just a terrible military commander, and he just didn't take things seriously. You know, it almost felt like, and it ended up resulting in him dying, right? And the thing is, Renly had every right to be overconfident with Stannis and all that stuff, but at the same time, he just didn't need to be there. Is what I'm gonna say, and that basically is how Renly wins the War of the Five Kings. Don't get killed by Stannis. Don't interact with Stannis, and he would be fine. Now, in hindsight, again, we know that Renly's going to die if he goes next to Stannis, but at the same time, even at the time, he didn't need to be there. So, yeah, that is the video. Thank you guys all for watching. If you guys have some other input you want to add to how Renly could have won the War of the Five Kings, please let me know down in the comments. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.